All right. So yeah, I wish you can keep discussion with another. But one thing I would like to remind you just because we have a limited quota for the capacity for the vaccine tour. So if you have already registered, we will maybe perhaps will start to draw some. But we will try to arrange a list. Hopefully we can bring everyone there. But we only have one tour bus. But if we have more and more students, we'll see how to deal with that. So perhaps contact me first if you are highly interested with that. And we will try to coordinate students to see how to solve with that. So far we have I think we have more than our original capacity students. But maybe I will ask other professors to stand for you. Maybe we will start to think about it. But just want to let you know. So perhaps we will try to draw maybe, I don't know, draw a list. And hopefully we will try to discuss with that. Okay? Maybe or the senior students go first. Just because the senior students maybe have no, maybe this is a final chance for them. So maybe senior go first and junior will wait for next year. Maybe. I'm not so sure, but let me think about it. Okay. But we will organize this event year by year, so still have a chance. Okay. Now we start to talk about the first topic today. We call mainly dealing with a disaster, but not just limited for a disaster. We call disaster response logistics. We just share with you in general, baby formula is also very important. Water, food, some instant food, also clothes. Lots of relief things we need to do. And most of the cases, this should be done by government. Unfortunately, you also agree government efficiency is quite low, speed is also very slow, and some we call a non-profit organization, or DHO is kind of the profit, but they still have some special the NPO organization here. We call the DARTS, mainly dealing with this case. So they try to, okay. They try to support relief to the different countries, not just for the disaster response. So I have one website to show you how they work. If you go to this website, you will find some interesting things. This is 2020, for example, during the hurricane. And if you want to see more you can click that. But I don't have time to go through one by one. They try to report what they've done during these events. You will see lots of things, but not just for that. So this website, they will try to record what they've done, and they also record dates. So October 21st, October 20, they try to find out lots of things and try their best to save around the world. So you could see in this case, you see, they have several collaboration with the OCHA and versus the DHL. OCHA is kind of an official from attribute to the United Nations system, but they can only conduct the nation among different countries. But unfortunately, every country has different interests. They always debate with each other. So eventually, let DHL do maybe much faster during the disaster response. So they have one team organized with that. And main task that we listed here is they want to help people quickly and organize and transfer the incoming relief goods. So I mentioned this just because we found lots of the events when earthquake occurs. Most of people are provide very valuable donations, but if no one can well organize and contact with that, and you will suddenly have lots of relief goods. And another terrible case is maybe on the first 3 days, day 1, day 2 to day 3, lots of incoming relief goods. After that, nothing. It's kind of another demand and supply quite imbalanced. So this team main task number 1, help to organize, make sure we have enough the long-term and continuous and sustainable relief support. So this is the first task. And the second one is maybe we need to have a more professional warehouse. So not just one simple warehouse. Think about it. Some may need to go through we call it cold chain logistics. Some vegetables, some fruit, something they may need to maintain the temperature, may need to maintain the humidity. So they need more warehouse, professional warehouse. And the third one is transportation. Transportation is very important during the disaster relief. Why? Any idea? Think about it. During the disaster, maybe earthquake, typhoon, tsunami, flood. How about transportation? Think about infrastructure. Is the road still there? Maybe nothing. Maybe blocked by water, blocked by, I don't know. So they need a specific treatment. And recently, they even have a helicopter or have like the more advanced things help delivery. So this is also very important. So during the disaster response, those three terms are very important. Number one, relief resource management. Number two, warehousing. Number three, transportation. Very similar to supply chain management. Three main factors. So we start from those three. And what kind of period they need to help? So here they say like within the 4 days, but actually maybe they need even faster. So usually like the 24 hours to 72 hours will be the golden period. They will try to deploy like the most of teams to there and kill the 2 to 3 weeks. But in general, like they depends on like the government. Eventually, they still need a government to handle with that. So those teams just do the first step, and maybe eventually like countries to help to organize everything. What else? Composition of the teams. Here, like DHL, they have the more regularly training people, and they have the different location, different experts with a different the service periods. So make sure that every time if something happens, something occurs, they have a team who can quickly help. So they have lots of team members like that, and located 3 different places around the world. I remember. Okay, one in Singapore, another one in South Florida, and the third one is in Dubai. It's that good. So find those 3 locations. Think about like global map. If you remember, 3 different. So Singapore team may be responsible for the Asia team, and Dubai is in the Middle East, and South Florida maybe dealing with the United States. So they have a 3 teams located with that. Those every day, actually, nearly every day. I check their website. Most every day they have lots of activities, so you could see they will record what they done and help relieve lots of people. And not just for the disaster, actually. Sometimes they may be dealing with some poor country with that. So that's what they do, and during every time they save the people. So why this is very important, maybe let me show you some video. So you will see why this is very important. Okay, start from here. Let's talk about what kind of like the UN organization collaborate with the DHL. Why this is very important. They have some missions, but mainly like you could typically see based on their mission, want to help people to organize.
Disasters and emergencies can affect anyone at any time. They can strike with little or no warning, whether it's a flood or a cyclone, a war, or an earthquake. People affected by catastrophe count on others for their very survival. But getting help to those who need it is a race against time, and in many cases, a matter of life or death. The problem is that making resources available to help people in need can take precious time. And that's why the UN's Central Emergency Response Fund, CERF, collects donations continuously, keeping your contributions safe and ready. So when the next crisis hits, we can kickstart emergency relief work, making money available immediately so that aid agencies can deliver food, clean water, shelter, medicine, and other assistance fast. And when a crisis fades from the headlines, and the money for humanitarian work dries up, CERF provides a lifeline, making sure help gets to the people that need it most. Since 2006, CERF has helped millions of people in almost almost 100 countries face the consequences of natural disasters and war. The world needs surf, so we can act quickly when tragedy strikes, and steer resources towards the crises that do not get the attention they need.
Okay, so mainly dealing with the natural disaster and war and lots of wars actually. And so far, it's kind of like an insurance. So you see, some countries they may not be able to deal fighting with a natural disaster. If natural disaster suddenly come out, it will bring lots of economic loss, lots of people die, and perhaps they need some help. So I will show you another video to talk about how severe for the natural disaster. This is the one.
Tropical cyclone Winston was the most devastating storm on record in Fiji and the southern hemisphere. The Category 5 superstorm with formidable wind speeds of up to 253 kilometers per hour and damaging monetary gusts of 330 kilometers per hour tore through the heart of Fiji, crippling infrastructure, hospitals, and communication lines, tearing homes and schools, leaving a trail of death, destruction, and despair.
Cyclone Winston was a tremendously powerful cyclone. I think one of the most powerful cyclones that we've seen in the South Pacific. Some 350,000 people. There were 44 deaths, at least that we know of. It was a big disaster, and I think we still see the very real aftermath of that disaster. And of course, there's also the economic impact, which we shouldn't forget.
We activated the National Humanitarian Cluster System. In this clusters, the co-chairs were designated government agencies and their partners from UN agencies and NGOs. They work together to manage their particular sectors. We want to be more prepared. Thanks to all the coordinated effort, there has been no preventable deaths as well. No disease outbreak, and we managed to seamlessly provide the basic needs while also undertaking early recovery as well as initiating the preparations for the long-term recovery. We plan to take forward.
So you see, even road construction will be a problem. Most of the roads are destroyed, and the buildings. So you can see during the disaster relief response, lots of things need to do. Number one, maybe try to organize the relief food. Number two, but eventually you see that even for the classroom and school, you need to help them to rebuild. So lots of things you need to do. Maybe later on we can discuss your list for the relief. But it's very important because sometimes we need to have a guidance. So we three of my previous students we collaborate with DHL. We're dealing with this similar project. We help them to make some list to organize what kind of things they should do, especially in transportation. Actually, because I'm focused on transportation, but even for transportation, I help DHL to think about during the disaster relief and natural disaster response, how should we do? So we have a lot of tasks. But later maybe I will back to ask your thinking.
The key actions, namely, one is the formulation of a Fijian national humanitarian policy. Secondly is the endorsement of a national manual on Fijian cluster system. And lastly is the development of a medium-term humanitarian capacity development program.
The arrival of Cyclone Winston reinforced the notion that although Fiji has contributed almost nothing to the carbon emissions warming our planet, Fijians will suffer more than lose from the disastrous effects of climate change. These severe weather events are only predicted to become more frequent and more severe. So we cannot afford to simply rebuild as we were. We need the know-how and resources to build our homes and infrastructure better and stronger.
Not preparing, I think, would be unwise. Whether it's going to happen, that's a different story. But of course, evidence suggests that we will have more severe tropical cyclones and events in the future. But again, I think the preparedness is key.
This is a global problem that requires a global solution. So we appeal to other nations to help Fiji and other small vulnerable developing states to access the finance we need to build our climate resilience so we can withstand the severe weather events and rising sea levels that threaten our people.
Okay, so we talk about resilience. Three of my previous students were dealing with lots of different resilience strategies. So now is my official discussion today is later I will separate to two groups, but each team should focus on one kind of like the natural disaster. Perhaps you can list what what we should do to quickly respond to those kind of disaster, and maybe you can have step 1, 2, 3. I want you to think about the SOP, so think about how to help like the organize those kind of relief team to help people. And we also have a similar problem in Taiwan. Actually, we have the two small islands, Green Island and the Lanyu, nearby Hualien County. And every summer we have a typhoon. So think about very similar situation with Fiji, because they don't have the mountain to help them to fighting the typhoon. We also have this problem. So how could, for example, like let me give you some, even for the bus stop, every typhoon they almost destroy. So I remember the first year we have one project to survey the public transportation service in Green Island. And based on our record, like they're supposed to have 30 stops across the island, bus stop. But when we arrived there, we only found one, because all the other 29 are disappeared during the typhoon season. So how will you think to help this issue? My short question, number one. So based on my previous example, if you were me, a transportation supposed to expert to dealing with this situation, we want to survey the public transportation service, but we suddenly found like originally supposed to have 30 bus stops, only one remaining. All 29, all others are disappeared during the typhoon. How will you do? Rebuild again, but next year, maybe destroy again. Any special thinking? No? Just rebuild again, or no, we don't need to build any bus stop. Let people remember, okay, we're supposed to have one, but they disappear always. Not good, right? If we still want to have a bus stop, I just give you a very brief example, because later on we're going to discuss more big project. If we still want to maintain the bus stop, how should we do? No idea. So far the bus stop is standing on one leg, maybe. So far if you arrive at the Green Island, you found they use a 2 leg. But that's not my suggestion. I even suggest them just hide the bus stop underground. You see, that's my suggestion. They already consider. They are wait for those 2 legs that disappear, and they will use my suggestion. But my suggestion is, I have my specific reason, because no matter how many legs you build for the bus stop, during the typhoon, we don't have hurricane, but typhoon is sometimes very severe, so maybe still destroyed. So they still spend more money to rebuild again. My suggestion is just let them stand on the ground. Maybe with the LED device, you just still can get most of the public transportation service information, and also good enough. So that's my suggestion. Maybe you can think. So my question today is, I want to think today and quickly think of focus different disaster, but give me your SOP. You think first, we will start our discussion later, because let me go through my slides first. Maybe later on during the 11:20, I will start our official discussion. Put it end, just because we have some classmates perhaps need to leave earlier, so I want to finish my slides first. Just like to think, if we need to dealing with some specific, you can think about your home country. So I remember in Thailand we have the flood every summer. How to deal with this flood event? In Taiwan we have the typhoon and earthquake almost every year. So we have a great experience with that. But think about your home country, maybe you can try to fight with those kind of natural disasters. Think about how we do. Okay, this is another issue. Let me quickly finish my slide. Military logistics is another issue. We're dealing with lots of things. Most of the logistic operations is starting from the military, actually. Why? Because Department of Defense for every country always own enough budget. When we work with the United States Department of Defense, during that time I remember because when I studied my PhD around 2007 to 2010. I just across the financial crisis. So during that time, you can realize like most of the government lack of money to support even for the education, except for one department. So during that time, we reached to the Department of Defense. We help them to do lots of operation, optimization and simulation in GIS. So they give me lots of money to let me finish my PhD career. But during that time, we're dealing with lots of things. So military logistics, mainly dealing with how to design, develop the loss cost distribution, even for we call it evacuation. Sometimes you need to help people to evacuate during the battlefield and transport not just personnel and goods to even for medical and health service. You have to well plan with that. So we call it military logistics. But since this term is conflict with the first term, so I'd like to just leave one slide. I have lots of experience with that, but it's not, I would say like most of the military logistics, they tend to find a winning strategy. So mainly spend lots of effort to develop the different strategy to win this battle. So most of them talking with that, but I just listed many basic categories. For the postal office, I think it's very early, starting from 1874. So UPU is kind of one of the United Nations. They developed some like the standard. What kind of standard? Think about if every country owns one kind of standard, then maybe you can only maintain the domestic postal office. So right now they recruit like more than 192 member countries, try to develop some like basic fundamental international mail exchange rules. So maybe every country can follow with that. So that's the whole agreement with that. Okay, but today I would like to put more emphasis here because like the post office, I think most of you are quite familiar with that in your daily life. So maybe I don't need to spend like the most of time there. Heritage logistics is also very important. I would like to show you one example in Taiwan, and later on maybe you can think more in your home country. So this issue we talk about nuclear waste. So most of people rely on the nuclear power plant to provide the electricity. How about the waste? Another news I have no time to share today, but it's also very important related to this. Japan. Anyone read the news? Yes, please. What kind of news?
It was about there was an accident there.
Yes, during the 2011, they have a tsunami. The tsunami suddenly destroyed the nuclear power plants. So during that time, Japan decided to terminate the lots of nuclear power plants. But what else was following?
Yeah, so they used water, I think, to sort that out.
Yes.
And then it got mixed up with the nuclear stuff, and they stored that nuclear waste somewhere. Now they wanted to dispose it in the sea.
Yes.
Yes, very good. Yeah. Yes, I like you to sometimes read the international news. I think at least know something happened around the world. This is a very big event. I think maybe more important than the trade war, more important than the United States president election. Japan want to put their nuclear wastewater through the ocean, and including the South Korea, including lots of surrounding countries, maybe in Taiwan, we are a little bit worried about with that. Because you can imagine lots of nuclear, just like ocean, maybe you need to spend like 1 century to clean that. And lots of the seafood or something. So very similar to with that. How to deal with the nuclear waste? I just give you like information like the French. They are collecting lots of money around the world because every country have no idea how to deal with that. So they just transport their nuclear waste to French. In Taiwan, we storage in one island we call Lanyu. How many of you traveled to Lanyu before? Oh, good. So how's your feeling?
Very beautiful. It's a little like very natural, but quite wild, I would say, but very beautiful.
So you travel with your scooter?
No, we rented scooters there.
Okay,
But,
good.
yeah, we took a boat from
Okay.
Taichung.
Oh, very good. Boat. Oh, I have to travel to Lanyu once or twice per year, but because of some project. I usually tend to take a flight because the boat is a little bit terrible for me. Unfortunately, the latest one I remember, I forgot like a few months ago, I booked the flight tickets again, but they canceled on my return flight ticket because of the weather. And then I have no options, so I jumped to the boat. During the 2.5 hours travel, I have a very bad experience. So I told my colleague like the next time, if my flight has been canceled, I decide to stay in the line for 1 more week until I have a flight ticket to back. And the reason, yeah, it's a bad experience. But so far, like in Taiwan, we try to storage the nuclear waste in this island. Very beautiful island actually. But this is another issue, like that we have a very beautiful island, but a couple of years ago, maybe 20 years ago, our government storage most of the nuclear waste there. Is that safe? If you were the residents of the Lanyu, how would you think? So if you were the government, how to convince the Lanyu resident to accept those kind of nuclear waste? How will you do?
Composition.
Oh, okay, very good. What else? But if they are not satisfied with that, what else you could do? Now the video talked like another thing is maybe 30 years ago the government just put the nuclear waste there. But after certain years, they are more and more dangerous. Because the nuclear waste, maybe after certain years, they still need to find out one maybe higher standard like the France to storage of like in our small island, maybe not able to storage anymore. And another thing is every year by year, our existing 3 nuclear power plants will still generate more and more waste. So maybe the space may not enough to handle with that. So that's the issues. You see like the nuclear waste in Lanyu for 20 years. So you will see what happened here. And now we adjust it.
On March 17th, the Ministry of Economic Affairs named Taidong Darren Township and Fengluz 1 An Township as the final proposed site for nuclear waste relocation. For the past 30 years, the nuclear waste has been stored in Lanyu despite concerns of the residents over the potential hazard to their health. Taiwan Power Company has been providing compensation to Lanyu, and some elders say the fund have helped the people's financial conditions. However, it was reported that the next compensation would be greatly reduced. The township office has been negotiating with Thai Power over this unexpected development.
In 1982, Thai Power shipped 10,000 barrels of nuclear waste to Lanyu for storage, despite strong protests from the local Dao people. The locals were against the move, which they argued was not only disrespectful to their dignity and culture, but would also ruin Lanyu's natural environment. But the locals only see the nuclear waste shipped to their home island increased to 90,000 barrels over the years.
This is the indigenous language, so maybe you can read the captions in both ways. I like this video because they also have a Chinese caption. But hopefully domestic students just move your eye a little bit.
The elders have complained about the nuclear waste site, but the large amount of compensation is attractive to many.
In 2002, Taipower rewarded 220 million Taiwan dollars to Lanyu Township office. Between 2003 and 2005, the company compensated another 500 million. Free electricity, transportation subsidies, and scholarships are all parts of the compensation packages. Once the nuclear waste is relocated, all such compensations might stop.
牵走之后，我们当然希望，台电还是希望说。
Of course, we hope Taipower can still provide education, medical, and other benefits after nuclear waste is relocated. We hope they continue the compensation measures on this island.
的一些办法措施要在我们岛上开始持续实行。
The large compensation is one reason that some locals agree to have nuclear waste stored in Lanyu. But the third compensation for 2006 to 2008 will be drastically reduced since the land Taipower lease has shrunk to 12 hectares from 120 hectares. Taipower and Township Office are still negotiating over the amount. As for the compensation measures after the relocation, the Township Office said it will deal with the issue later. TITV Weekly.
Okay, so you could see like so far like I think this is the issue like the nuclear waste. Maybe lots of countries have this issue. Only few countries maybe need to do not worry about that. But in Taiwan, we do care about this issue. The situation is, I think 20 years ago, government maybe no matter how they fight with that, they against it with that, they just put there. And although following, they give lots of compensation, but you know, compensation versus health is kind of like a serious issue. So how will you think? If you were a resident of the Lanyu, would you like to stay with those nuclear waste? No, right? But another question it would be like how we have more and more like the more general and more like the nuclear waste year by year. How to dealing with that? If you're standing on the government, the role of the government, maybe you are the one manager in government. How should you do? So that's the issue is like the no solution.